Yo, what's up, world? This is Dane Tomas, and you're listening to the Dane Tomas podcast. Every week, I talk to experts, weirdos, new friends, and old ones about everything from magic to business to creativity and human awakening. So, strap yourself in, lay back and relax, cause we're heading straight for the black hole. Yo, hey bro, how are you?
Good. I feel like I'm in your laboratory, and we're gonna shake beakers and poke our fingers in places that shouldn't be, and we're gonna giggle. And yeah, I really like being at this nascent part, this burgeoning crypto culture, and the way that it's come on both of our radars at kind of a similar time. And we're like, okay, this is something that needs to be there, and we're bringing our bag of tricks from other areas, and we're just going full ball sack and all into something that is undeniable. Yeah, in this
Ball
space.
sack first. Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all kinds, I'm here with Atlas Talisman. I am going to classify Atlas as a game designer, both in the digital sense, but also in the life sense. Atlas is the creator of open world theater and a bunch of other stuff. But the reason he's here now, and the reason we're going to talk now, is because I'm seeing you as somewhat of a shepherd at the moment, of shepherding people into the Web3 reality, and that's what I want to riff with you on. And you know, a couple of other people I've been chatting with around kind of NFTs and really specific stuff, but with you it's a lot more broad and a lot more open. So that's what I'm hoping is we can just get in there and kind of explore somewhat.
Hell
Yeah, but thanks for doing this, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that approach to broad. And maybe I could start off with just giving a smattering of how I've been trying to get into this space for years. And now finally it's like crypto, Web3, metaverse is this culmination of every sweet thing just in one big thick shake. I'm like, that's why I'm just like, yeah, 24/7 on the slurp.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, improvisation was where it all started for me. Commedia dell'arte as a kid, Johannesburg Youth Theatre, like growing up in South Africa, like it's always been about the arts, and particularly things where the sacred clown was just wrecking all the rules. Like, oh my God, is this theatre? Is this real? I feel uncomfortable yet liberated. This is so true, and yet it's fantasy. So that's kind of my entire life. You know, I didn't have some kind of spiritual awakening, some kind of liberation. Fine, I can be an artist. I was just like Asterix and Obelix. Obelix fell in the juice when he was a baby. Art, spirit, always been this way. But I've been trying to find, like sniffing on the wind. I think you're similar. It's like, what is happening? Like, no. I don't want to pay attention to what you're trying to get me to put my attention onto, because that's actually not what's happening. There's this other thing just out of the periphery of our awareness that we're all feeling. That's the true mythopoetic dharmic river that we're all flying on. I'm like, what's going on here? And I've done a really good job of getting out of all kinds of responsibilities for most of my life, so I can just cruise and perceive and just walk through cities like with no responsibility, going, what on earth is happening? And so in 2008, I've been doing loads of community workshops for years, charity, freestyling. And I was like, I'm on the ground going in loops, like the underground activist, spoken word, underground hip hop battle scene is beautiful, but there's some other piece I need. And so I started studying graphic design or communication design. And then as soon as I got in that, I'm like, no, this isn't it either. Everything's dead, like billboards and magazines. I don't want that. I want something that responds to me. So I deferred that degree. I went and started studying professional game development. This is in 2010, maybe. And then I graduated both of those simultaneously. And I was like, good, but what about space, like beyond the video game screen? So then I started studying a master's of interaction design and electronic art. That's Sydney Uni. And I was like 6 months into that. And I was like, cool. But like, I want to go more deep into the code. And so I've recently been doing a Bachelor of Computer Science to do with actually coding video games. I'm like, good. You know, so that's the kind of thing. I'm like, I pick it up, I go deep in. And then finally coming into the space of NFTs this year, I was like, metaverse, decentralized finance. And that just makes my pirate heart sing. We're like, yeah, fuck the banks, you big bellied bastards trying to keep it behind your little sweaty mahogany walls. Nah, I'm kicking that shit down. And the system is so beautiful. Like economy is so beautiful. Community is so beautiful. Culture is so beautiful. Society is the cult. And so that's kind of what I've been bringing, my bag of tricks of sacred clown, communication design and graphic design, 3D animation and game design and game engine messing with, interactive environments and interaction design in the 3D and the real world space, computer coding, and then community building. And I think that our technology has finally caught up, and actually they're always hand in hand. Our social awareness, our individual spiritual cognizance, our tech tools are always kind of rising together, commensurate with each other's capacity to conceive of each other. And I think now, it's like the birth of Bitcoin. When did that happen? It was like 2008, around the huge collapse of property market. And when we finally were disenfranchised and we didn't trust, banks and property. So, these cultural things. And then we've had COVID, amazing. We all got forced inside to be in our computers 24/7. And just like these things speed up, but they're so beautifully aligned and both causing and affecting each other. So yeah, that's where we are today. Where I bring all that bag of tricks and I'm like, this is what is now, and we are ready for whatever is to come.
Yeah. I was having dinner with Alpha Mama last week, and I think I said something along the lines of, well, now that Web3 is here, Atlas kind of makes sense, And I think, a lot of what you've been doing is been quite visionary and quite future and quite, probably to a lot of people, quite abstract. And now that this sort of infrastructure, and I also said, I always thought when I first met Atlas, this guy's either going to be penniless for his whole life or be a billionaire. And for the first time, I'm kind of starting to tend towards the second one. That's a new.
Me too. I'm working in fintech now. Like what?
Yeah. So it's like there's context dropping around you that makes it all make sense, or at least, and maybe it's always made sense to you, but will make it make sense for other people of like, I'm going to need a person who can kind of think in a gamified way, who's native to this, and this. And you're like, yeah, I'm the only one. Like, I'm that guy. There's no, and I think there is some similarities with us. Like, I was in this room, it's only about 3 months ago, watching the greatest NFT film ever made by the Defiant. And, I don't know if this is the greatest NFT film ever made, but it was the only one that I'd seen at the point. And I didn't understand all of what they were explaining, which I think to me now would seem quite familiar. I'm kind of, that 3 months has been a very long and deep 3 months, but something was coming in for me, even though I was confused. I was like, fuck. And Tyron's like, what? I'm like, fuck, bro. And he's like, I've fallen asleep. And I'm like, it's like all the things that I'm interested in are converging. And Mia had me listening to a Terence McKenna's last ever interview not long ago, like from 2000 or whatever. And he's talking about the transcendental object at the end of time. And he talks about how, from day dot, from like amoeba time through all the dinosaurs and whatever to now, there's been this, he calls it the acceleration of novelty. He talks about novelty as, he means by that the increase of interesting things and things in general happening. And I just had this thing of like, I think NFTs are like, it's like, they're like the fucking, the tracking pixel for that thing to happen. It's like they're this small really thing, this small bit of thing, but it's going to bring finance and tech and culture and art. And for me, there's, I've got this thread around magic being the intentional ability to create reality. It feels like all of those things are kind of smashing together right now in a way that, well, you and I had the conversation about, we were around those dudes who were early crypto people, and they would kind of had that manic kind of look, and they're like, no, you've got to, you need to understand. And part of me was like, I think this guy's probably right, but I just don't think I can cross this threshold right now. It's like, I don't know, 2015 or something. And I was just like, look, bro, that sounds very interesting, but yeah, I'm fine, and maybe 2017, 2018, one of them, I crossed over the line and set up some things, and it was already more simple than probably when someone was trying to show it to me 3 years earlier. But now I feel like I'm one of those guys, I'm like, no, look, someone will ask me about, okay, well, what's this NFTs thing about? And then like 4 minutes later, I can see that they regret what they regret opening that door, because I'm like, okay, but that links to this and then this and then they're just like, this is more than I wanted. So it feels like we're riding a similar wave.
Yeah, I think there's this desperation where you realize there's all this fresh air and you need, it's quite, I get panic, like inspiration panic when someone opens up a new whole thing, like, I can't take this in quick enough. There's so much more. And as quick as I can take it in, it's like YouTube with whatever 500 hours being added every minute or something. It's like,
Yeah,
I can't, no matter how quick I learn, there's more. I'm already behind before I've even started.
yeah,
Yeah, I get that all the time. And at the same time, yeah, there's waves of cognizance and coherency where it literally, what we're saying now also will be completely inaccessible to the people who are not the tools or the instruments of that particular iteration. The way that I could quickly break it down would be those people that spoke about it when we were, like, I remember 2014 sitting on a rooftop in South Korea, and this guy was talking about Bitcoin, and I was like, amazing, and took zero action. He was like, it was being so easy to get involved, but I took zero action, absolutely none. But it's probably because back then it was so technical and it was really about, the protocols and getting the, play testing it, hacking it, seeing it, if it actually stood up, da, da, da. That's not my genius. So I simply wasn't needed on the playing field at that time. And so it went by me, and yeah, sure, I missed the wave on that first thing, but we're still so early. Just to remind people, even if you hear this in a year or two's time, this podcast, you're still early, and probably it's starting to be coherent because you're being called to the forefront. And so I think people like you and I, Dane, are called because we're community builders. We can put a creative, relatable front to something that's more esoteric, whether it be technical or magical. And we are those kind of translation pieces. We're also pioneers. We will jump in first and get a few scrapes and bruises and like, cool. And so it's still very much a wild west. So I think that the technological groundwork was laid, and now we're laying the community and the real sense of a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. How can we steer this together? And we're going to have storytellers that actually bring people around the fire and go, cool, you're going to do this, you're going to, and people systems thinkers as well, not just the people that understand protocols and interoperability and code, but people understand, spiral dynamics or the wheel of co-creation or any of these other kind of ways that bring the human part together. So that's what we're doing now.
yeah.
And then people that are, whatever service or product they're going to put on the foundation we're laying will be called in a year or two, So I think there's going to be these continual waves. But right now we are saying, how do these things link together? How does trading, hodling, DeFi, metaverse, NFT, and also IoT, Internet of Things, how is this actually going to plug into infrastructure and the climate and, production and routes of distribution, like the real click, clack, tangible world sort of things. We're trying to now translate between all these spaces.
Love it. Yeah. And for me, like, it feels like someone who's been out in the surf for a while and they've caught some waves and they've missed some waves. And there's that sense of like, oh, there's one coming. And it's like, I'm not missing this one. I'm going to, I don't care if I have to paddle 20 minutes early. I'm getting started right now because I'm telling you there's something coming. And then noticing other people that are tuned or that are early adopters or what, they're also starting to paddle. It's like, oh, you too, huh? And it's like, okay. And then that feeling, on a level, like, it's fascinating. I haven't been this dedicated to a subject in quite a while. And I'm not really that interested in technology per se, like I am, but I'm more interested in the development of human consciousness. I'm interested in wealth. I'm interested in the evolution of culture. And so for that, I have upskilled my tech and the number of platforms that I'm capable of working with by, like, I don't know how many X in the last couple of months. Whereas this be like, oh, I don't want to need to add another platform to my kit. I use these 7 or 8 or 12 or 15 things, and that's reasonable. Now I'm like, oh, you need me to go over here? Cool, I'm over there. Oh, well, okay, of course I can add that on. It's like there's a when you really commit to a journey, it's like if you're going to climb Everest and someone goes, you're going to need gear, you're like, fuck it, all right, load me up. You don't go, well, I don't want to carry stuff. You're going to need to get fit. It's like, fine, I'll train. It's like whatever's required to get myself ahead of the wave. And and it's very interesting for me because I can't separate my personal selfish drives of like, I want to win. I just want to win the game. I want to do well. And my altruistic, like, I want to get here so I can get my people across. There's a big thing of like, I want spiritual people to get this. I want creative entrepreneurs that I love to get this. and I can feel there's these layers of density that like that would stop some of them. So I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'll go look up what all that shit means. You know, like I'll just watch another 3 videos over breakfast, like, and then I'll have a headache and I'll let it move through. And like I wrote this ebook, which some of you who are listening are probably here because of the ebook, but I wrote it to support others, but I wrote it to consolidate like phase 1 of my learning, you know, and all this interesting shit is happening like in my meditations and in my other practices. Like I do Bikram once a week, right? And last week I was laying down in Shavasana. It's super fucking hot here, like tropical hot. So in Bikram, it's the sweatiest Bikram I've done in a long time. And I was laying there and I realized I was processing in my energetic field in like blocks. And I was like, there's a blockchain, but I'm thinking and feeling in blockchain blocks now. Like it's just like complete. And I was like, fuck, I didn't have that metaphor 3 months ago, you know, like I didn't have that piece of geometry or that dynamic. And now it's like I'm doing like a Vipassana style scan, and it was just like complete. And I'm like, fuck, it's not just one way. Like this is impacting, you know, even in the web 2.0 things that I want to do, even if I was to not use, say, NFT technology or blockchain or a virtual environment to deliver it, I'm already like, even if it was fucking bits of paper and no computers involved, I'm already like, okay, so how we structure this so that each person has X amount of input and maybe they get a return from it, and we kind of turn it into a little bit of a game so that it's like, so I'm getting downloads just from the structures that, you know, I'm going to adopt plenty of things, but even if we go back to like Mad Max Stone Age kind of forager reality in a year from now, there's all these new patterns of like, okay, we'll have a DAO, we'll use this stick to deliver the, you know, but we're doing a DAO, you know.
Yeah, and it is the unencumbering. Like I think that people, when they think of Web3, it's like we're getting more tools, more platforms, more technology. But for me, it's actually a stripping back, because up until now, we've had the encumbrance of centralized power, which is actually really stressful. It's a strain on any system. It creates a bottleneck. It's hard to actually fulfill all the roles. You've got the abstract nature of your position means you can't connect with all the extension of the tendrils. So there's so many ways that it doesn't work, but up until now it was the only way to try and tame the chaos.
Yes, we probably needed it to get to here.
Exactly. And now we're basically stripping off that artificial layer of control to actually allow the system to breathe again. And it's simply just, it's biomimicry, you know, it's permaculture, it's syntropy, it's symbiosis. It's all of these things which are naturally around us anyway. You know, things are decentralized. Nature is a DAO. You know, it's this organism where each thing does its role. We all feed, and this the thing is, we all benefit. Up until now, there've been few people who've been benefiting from this whole system running. And even though it might have seemed like a good idea to those at the time, and was obviously an incentive for them to put all the work that they did, there's a natural atrophy. The system starts to rebel because it can't get enough blood and oxygen. So it's just not going to put up with it. So it's outgrowing itself. And now the oxygen can finally go to all the limbs that are doing the running. And we start to go, you know, that thing where like, I just wanted to go and surf all day, or I just want to give people massages all day, or all I want to do is draw pictures or whatever. Our participation is never in question. We want to contribute to society, and we get this intrinsic reward of like, I feel like I'm loved. I feel like I'm more effective. I get things more. Like human beings want to be a part of an economy. But just up until now, it hasn't fed back to them. They didn't have any equity in the thing that they're contributing towards. And there's this injustice. It's like, I've done so much contribution, whether it be like I've put these insightful philosophic posts on Facebook or just taking photos of my food on Instagram, whatever. We've been giving a lot, but not getting anything back. And that's the underlying thing in pit of people's stomachs. And so finally, you can just be yourself. You can just be a geek in any club you want. And simply by being there, the value of it goes up. And because the value of it goes up, because it's a DAO, you personally benefit.
And it's not, you know, it's not just social media or Web2. Like I used to have this, you know, I was this kind of sensitive, visionary creature, and I fucking had to work jobs, you know. I'm finished school. I don't know what I'm fucking doing. All right, I'm going to get a job in this. Some of the jobs I went for a job at a funeral parlor. I went for a job at a fucking roastery in like a food court, you know, and my whole time I was like, please don't let them hire me. Please don't let me get this job. You know, like I just don't, that would be the worst thing I could imagine. And to be in this situation where they're like, cool, so why do you want to work here? And I kind of be like, well, I was born into a planet where you have to get credits to exchange for food, clothing, and shelter. And if I don't have those credits, I will die, you know? Is that, oh, that's not the answer you wanted an answer about, I'm really interested in funeral parlors or fucking roasteries, or, you know, I'm wanting to work my way up to like junior manager or something. And it's like, yeah. No, the reason is, you know, for tens of thousands of years, we've been in an exchange system that works like this. So I have to, you know, and I have looked for ways to increase the leverage on that sort of time and energy output to return. And it you know, and for a long time, my attempts at leverage didn't seem to work. And then in the last 8 to 9 years, it's like that game almost, it's like, oh, this is starting to bear fruit, you know, $50,000 doing stuff I mostly didn't mind. And then the next year it's like, oh, I made this doing shit I pretty much mostly like apart from these bits. And it's, you know, there's a lot of deprogramming required, I think, for that. There's no such thing as the average person, but for most people, the idea that like, you know, I'm still trying to clock like, okay, so if I own these bears, I'm going to get honey every day. And that honey is redeemable for cash. That's weird, you know. I like it, you know, and I'm seeing that it's true. There's other people around me who they have it, so it's not made up. But even though part of my brain is like, that has to be a scam, and it's like, nope, that guy he's taking me to lunch with money that he has got because he owns, you know, Bears Deluxe, right? And it's like, what the fuck, you know? That's crazy. But it only looks like that because we've been in training like, nope, 40 hours a week, probably something you don't like. That's one of the rules. You definitely find something you don't like. That's very, very key to this whole thing. Or, you know, yeah, we'll take care of your money and we'll give you 4% interest. You know, like these are the sort of options that the normal participant gets. And then those people, whether it's through extreme creativity or maybe they're a total fucking sociopath, so they just fucking go straight through, you know, those who, for whatever reason, don't feel the need to obey those, found other ways. Oh, I bought a house with no money down and sold it to John. And then I got them, and it's like, what? But those people have always been, you know, very small percentage. And so, yeah, I'm very interested in, the idea that we can author our own economics.
Yep. I think that for me, the economics came after the knowledge flow, because I think that, you know, when you look back at cypherpunks and the where all this came from, they were people that simply wanted to be able to learn for free. And they believed that knowledge should be accessible to everyone. They wanted to decentralize the library. They wanted to just be able to just geek out on these big old, you know, computers the size of a room, and they'd go and like do these switchboards and just like, they just wanted to, that any time of day and night, they would want to go and learn. And that was really what drove this whole infrastructure. So it wasn't necessarily money. They would just pay to do it, in fact. But any economy is based on the premise of some kind of flow, which is connecting up all the points like a circuit, and they can be complete as long as there's an exchange of something. And so I really like the fact that financial aspect is actually the second layer on the layer one of knowledge sharing, and the fact that we should all be able to learn and go as deep as we want. So that feels really good, and I trust the heart of it. And even though at the moment we've got institutions and big people from the archaic establishment of finance, I'm sure they're going to come in and swing, you know, the big bags around and make a wave as whales. But it's always going to be one step. Cool, we'll just innovate around the system, like the internal economies within one particular NFT project or whatever it is. You know, there's always going to be a way to outthink, because it's actually unfair. It doesn't matter how good your players are. If you pit your alpha team of like 4 players against 400 players, they're going to win. And you get a few stories about, what was the Grecian story of the 100 or whatever it is. Like, there are moments in history when it hasn't worked out that way, but that's also from heart and from love. And so, yeah, our system, the decentralized system, leverages an unfair amount of power of millions, if not billions of people all weighing in. And that's why it's always going to sort of pit those who are just trying to influence whatever market cap it is, billions of dollars or whatever it may be.
Can I throw you a semi kind of practical question?
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's imagine, so I'm just going to fabricate a person in my audience, but let's say, small to medium level Instagram influencer or coach or creative or embodiment workshop type person, or, one of those kind of characters who is Web 2 semi-skilled, does photo shoots, can write a bit of copy, can get people into their programs, or can sell their thing through that ecosystem. What would you advise them to be doing right now? Like if they're like, I want to get involved in this thing, but I have no fucking idea what's going on, or it's just too big, or it's just too complicated. What would you say to them in terms of if they have that willingness, but they're a little shy to dive in, or don't know how to dive in?
Yeah, for sure. I think I would start with a two-pronged approach, looking at crypto to you and you to crypto. So with you to crypto, it would be, what am I already doing? What's my genius? What's the value that's inherent in my community? Why do people like following me at all? There's some kind of value which you probably haven't leveraged into some kind of financial gain, or been having a measurement on your scoreboard that something's actually happening there. It's like below your awareness. And so for me, gamification or bringing something to the metaverse is all about looking at the system that's already in place and simply having a sensor that can register the fact that that thing happened. So if I've got an NFT, or if I've got a smart contract or something which goes, oh, you just clicked a button, or you just shared to 10 people, or you did this, you did that, whatever the thing may be, now I can start to have that work the levers of my system. And that's what computers are all about. It's about on and off. So if you can get any behavior that's already happening in your community and have a statistic or have some kind of input output that relies on that happening in order to then trigger another event, you're starting to work out the native or the natural, the innate economics of your brand that already exists. So that's what I'd be doing, is then bringing that across to crypto. And the basic level of NFT for me is just think of the NFT as a membership pass to your club. And then you give people access in the exclusive level to all of those things which are already happening. But more so that's like the first flow, is me to crypto. How can I bring my natural economy to what's there? The other way is to ask, well, what can crypto do? So find out things like immutability, proof of authorship, programmability, scarcity, all these sort of things, which are the innate qualities of an NFT. And they're also changing, because the ERC tokens or the different protocols it's based on, there's actually a few of them. Like NFT is not just one type of thing. You've got like non-fungible tokens, you've got semi-composable, you've got, composable, you've got a lot of different things which can actually house different types of things. So an NFT can also hold fungible tokens as well inside it. And so learn, or have someone translate to you what this tool can do. So if you're a painter and someone hands you a sword, it's like, well, I'm good at like doing swishes like that, and I know how to create this thing, but I've got a new tool in which to do my same genius. And then you'd have to break it apart. So for example, if you're a musician, one of the simple examples would be Monograph with Timbaland putting out his songs as stems, which are ownable. And then you can remix your own songs from different stems. And so that's a really simple way, which already harks back to, in the industry, you created stems so that when you're mixing and mastering, you've got more control over the layers. And so that actually translates really well to this new environment where you want people to collaboratively create songs, and you also want them to be little layers you can weave into maybe a 3D world or a character's behavior, or you might want to have like a GTA car that plays the soundtrack and whatever it is. And so you've got to learn how you can disassemble your artwork and actually plug it into the new interface of the technology of Web3.
Cool, nice answer. Yeah. What are some of the things you're most excited about, that you're involved with, or that you're tracking at the moment?
I think it's a matter of looking where the pulse is and using that attention unit, the high level traffic, to acquaint people with a particular way of interacting or particular value system. So like NFTs, just to be really clear, they're not works of art. Like NFTs will be linked to ownership of physical things. They'll be linked to your political vote. They'll be linked to your medical record. All it is a unique identifier. on a publicly distributed ledger. So that's all it is. It's just like scarceable, provable. You can say the point of authorship, you can show the transfers, and you can show the point of ownership. Authorship, ownership. That's what it's doing. It's got actually nothing really to do with what it's linked to, like your photo or your video or your house or your shoes, whatever it is. So the fact that Beeple sold Everydays in March for 69 million brought a lot of attention. Culturally, we said, well, Christie's, like this legit auction house, is going to sell a digital artwork. What? And that was from the old school art scene. It was like, okay, well, this is actually legitimized. And from the finance scene, who are, selling ancient, Cleopatra's couch or whatever, they go, oh, and now we've got this digital thing we can work with. So I gave a tick of approval there. And then from our side of the digital artists, people making songs that have been distributed on Spotify or elsewhere, artists like Beeple himself, I really love his story because I've been using his stuff for years because he releases all of his stuff for free, Creative Commons. So he already had that, like, just take it, just take it, just take it. And so after 13 years of selfless giving, he gets $69 million. And so it actually kind of balances out. But the
metaphor of Web3 kind of attitude in a way.
Because you don't know, there's a thing, in retrospect, you don't know what your activities will then be given the value of. It's like those people that had Ethereum name servers, the ENS, right? It was like, openworld theater.eth. Right, which is kind of like an address that you can link your wallet to and have you as your contact point in the metaverse. People had those for a while, and then suddenly they did this release of the coin, and you had all of this money attributed to your potential value because you've been holding. Like, you just don't know. By being on the playing field, you're having these little artifacts stick to you. You might have a web address, you might have an NFT. You just get we just released a token on DAO Starter, and in order to cast your vote or be involved in it, you had to buy their little NFT in order to be part of the early access release. It's worth nothing, but it's just like your stamp that you were there. There's this other kind of NFT which gets given to you simply by participating. So you showed up at a particular event, and it's like your stamp at at a concert. Like, I was there. Yeah. So at the moment, those things aren't worth anything, but you just don't know what value it'll be given in the future. And that's the kind of exciting thing. It's like all of these, as you said, he's been giving. And then all of a sudden, boom, he'd grown this real entity, which didn't have value attributed to it, which then suddenly, through a new system, a new paradigm shift of value, suddenly goes, you've got 100 of those things. Now they're actually worth $1 million each, whatever it is. So that was the key shift that happened to us. And so now there was this massive surge of interest to do with NFTs. It's got nothing to do with art, but basically what we're doing now is we're using all this interest to acquaint people with the idea of a unique token on a seemingly limitless world, because there's infinite capacity to duplicate things and replicate things and copy and paste open source code. And so it's hey, we know you can just copy and paste anything, but how about if you had a token that no one else had? So that's the most exciting thing for me at the moment, is we're just using these entry points to actually educate ourselves and evolve as a culture to these other more important systems or ways of interacting with each other. So that would be one of them, NFTs, but it's actually got nothing to do with art for me. It's more about the culture of your unique entry point into something infinite. And it's got this beautiful polarity of like singular and infinity. And that's why it's so powerful. Things that are unique, like this coffee cup is it's got my particular lips on it or whatever. That is non-fungible, because even if you have the same coffee cup, it's different. But in a world of scarcity and one of ones, it's not as. But if I had like an infinite tap or perpetual energy machine in this world, IRL, that would be amazing.
Crazy, because this world is fungible. We don't doesn't work like that here.
Well, it's non-fungible. Yeah, it's unique. It's got this scarcity aspect. Yeah, exactly. So
scarcity is inbuilt to the 3D world. It's
exactly.
not quality we had to add on. It's like food has run out. You've eaten the bananas. There are no more bananas. It's like, oh.
Exactly. You've taken all the ore out of the earth and now you're screwed. So that's why NFTs are important. It's simply because in an infinite universe, we finally found a way to have scarcity. So that's why it's kind of so powerful. And so, I guess the other things, that'll be one thing. And the other thing is DeFi DAOs. And when people talk about DAOs, they kind of intersperse it with DeFi DAOs. It's like a DAO is this thing you invest into money, and then there's a collective person, and you get yields based on. But they're not the same thing. A DAO is a DAO, and DeFi is DeFi. But right now we're exploring. That's the other thing that's really exciting. Like, with Olympus DAO, there's this space where we're understanding that we can be our own bankers. You can play all the roles, and you can be the person who provides liquidity. You can actually get a loan from someone. You can be the one who provides it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the other thing. We're kind of taking ourselves through bank schooling right now.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing that's really massive. And then probably the third thing would be metaverse, which we can talk about a lot about, but we're actually trying to understand what that means. And people talk about Facebook's metaverse or this metaverse. Like, no, you don't understand. There's only one metaverse. It's always going to be the overarching thing which holds everything, because the key quality, in my opinion, about a metaverse is interoperability, having one thing talk to another, which up until now was in a silo. And that way you can find correlation you never thought possible. It's like how does having your friend crying at your shoulder relate to selling an artwork, relate to paying your rent? Like in Web 2, they got nothing to do with each other. But in Web 3, all of your activities speak to each other because they're all held by a decentralized identity, or DID. And that's when it goes, oh, wow, it all matters. And that's where we start to have an analogy which is closer to the actual world, because I believe that's actually how nature works, is, as you say, butterfly effect. If these rabbits die, this bee does this or does that, it causes a tornado or a typhoon across the world. There is such a interconnection in nature, in reality, yet we didn't have those in society and in technology. And so finally, our social technology, which is now in Web 3, is starting to mimic the interoperability of real life.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. I was thinking about how funny it is, with the Bored Apes and all the derivatives. Like, so this tech comes in, it gives us the ability to engineer scarcity and rarity in a previously infinite digital world. And the first thing, well, maybe not the first thing, but one of the first things we do, or the group of humans who are across it do, is like start trading pictures of monkeys. It's like, this could have been applied to kind of anything. And we're here, it's like, look at this one, it's got lipstick on, it's just like, I've been thinking about this in this abstract form for a minute, of like, it speaks to, it's like, yeah, they're pictures of monkeys, which are us, it's almost like this, on this deep metaphorical level, there's this like, yes, reminder, for all the distance you've traversed, this is you guys, you're the chimps that started writing code, and tampering with the code and setting up abstract rules and so on. And, it's like, yep, we've built this whole new world so we can successfully trade pictures of monkeys that look like people. And it's like, okay, all right, that's what we're going to do here, huh?
Well, I think the relevance, just to jump on there, and don't want to interrupt your thought too much, but just to sprinkle some relevance in my mind, the way that works with monkeys and technology is the fact we've started to weave the different layers of Maslow's hierarchy of need together. So we've started to get that base primal monkey-esque thing of like money, I guess, with the next layer, which is belonging, which is the next layer of kind of like contribution or whatever it is into self-actualization or realization. But it's like, now by belonging, you get to have your level 1 stuff satiated. So that's why I think the monkey is perfect, because it is the lightning in a bottle. It is the firestone that started it all, is we've started to link our primal needs with our dreaming capacity.
Yeah, it's like we're starting again in that metaverse layer of, okay, firstly, we're chimps. Secondly, let's form tribes, and then we'll do some other things after that. And fuck, how tribal is crypto Twitter? Like, the deeper I go with it, more I'm like, okay, so the Bitcoin maxis are all crazy with their laser eyes, and then these guys over here are really committed to this one idea. It's like, oh, this is it's an interesting place,
Yeah, and people's zealous enthusiasm and comes from, even if it comes from the greed. That's the thing. I think we always have to leverage what is, and people are greedy. And a lot of maxis, I think it's not just because they believe in the technology, it's probably because they're really invested in it. They got in early or whatever it is. And sure, there'll be some people that legitimately think it's a code base that has no comparison. But I believe that when we look at the true nature of the metaverse, there needs to be many different distributed things and poly chains and all these kind of things. That's the only way it can actually function, because Bitcoin it can't do everything, and it doesn't want to do everything. Like it does what it does really well. But I think it does come from that primal need to satiate your own desire, and so we're kind of leveraging greed to foster participation, which then enables the system to flow, which then enables the greater technology to actually function. Because when you decentralize, you need someone to validate. Like the system doesn't function unless someone shows up to play a role.
Yes.
And so that therefore, so the greed actually enables a thing to function. And so I think that's why also crypto is starting to work so well, is because it's leveraging the base layer of like greed, money, and porn. Like surely this is going to become a big thing as well, because when you look at technology, really
that it's not already like running the show,
rampant. Yeah. Well, war, like if you think of internet, really war games, that's why we needed these, these internet, these interoperable server-based computing systems was pushed and funded by the military for spy games and all that kind of shit. And so it was war that enabled there to be enough interest in this thing, and in intel, collecting private information on citizens, all that kind of stuff. That's what pushed computing. And then as far as the type of qualities, because you can share a lot of data and text in that kind of war games kind of scenarios, like, oh, the Germans are at this location, that location. But when it came to porn, we want to see that shit bounce. We want to see the dripping
coordinates. Okay, she's 32, 28, 32. It's like,
And now it's an inch deeper, 32, 47. Yeah. So we wanted to, and so that high def requirement meant that we had to work out bandwidth to distribute like bigger files and that kind of stuff. So war and porn push the technology forward. And so these base layers I think will also continue to push crypto forward as well.
That could be a good place to take a pause, man. I feel like that's a good dose for the unsuspecting wander in and just get 40 something minutes of that.
Nice.
Yeah, if people want to keep track of you, follow you, consume you, apart from coming to your house, how would they do that?
Well, I would say Crypto Collective, like just follow us on Twitch. I think that I'm going to be increasingly showing up there. I'm in there pretty much every day, which is basically just twitch.tv/Crypto Collective. And also for my personal project, which is linked to Open World Theatre, but also to a game called Vicarious, where I'm essentially becoming I call it a DAI or a DA, a decentralized autonomous individual or human. That's where you can play me as a human in the game of life. That's basically twitch.tv/the human avatar. So that's probably what I put out for now. Connect up with you there. If you're in the crypto space, also please get a Twitter account, because that's where the conversations are being had there and in Twitter spaces. So I'm just at Atlas Talisman. Pretty straightforward. And yeah, I'll see you in the metaverse.
Amazing. Thanks, brother.